Hello and welcome to this Q&A video. This is a special video as I will be answering some questions that's been submitted by supporters of the channel and those on Patreon and Subscribestar and even on Discord. I have quite a few questions which I don't think I'm going to get through all of them in this video, especially as the video that's running in the background is about an hour and a half long, and I'm going to be cutting it down quite considerably. For those interested, this video is a recording of me making and creating Emily's room, which is used in Dreams of Reality. So you should, those that play, you should actually recognise the room. But whilst that's playing, I think let's get started with some of the questions. The first question I ever received was, why is there air? And that's an easy one to answer. That's quite simply because without air, the trees would have absolutely nothing to do. Okay, moving on. First question, what is your real age? I'm 38 years old. My birthday is actually in December. I was a Christmas, well, post-Christmas baby. What do you do for a living? I am an IT consultant. I'm actually a contractor, I suppose. I work with several different contracts and look after computer systems. It sounds a lot more glamorous than what it actually is. What got you started in making adult games? You wouldn't be surprised to know that there was a game that piqued my interest, which was acting lessons. Everyone knows this game, and for various different reasons. But quite frankly, I was playing that, I was enjoying myself, and I kind of thought, I can do this. Well, yeah, we live and learn. And next question, what is your opinion of Summertime Saga? Do you know, I never actually played, well, I did, I played Summertime Saga a bit, probably about a year ago actually. Um, the issue I have with it is that it's a well-established game. It's been in development for quite a few years, and as a consequence, it's very difficult to get into a game like that. If you'd been with the game from the beginning, then you're already invested, whereas to new players, there's a big beast of a game that you have to get through, and a lot of developers, they'll start out with a very quick tutorial that never really gets updated to reflect the changes the games make, and as a consequence it can actually turn a lot of people off of the game. Now that's not to say that Summertime Saga is a bad game. It's not. It's obviously a very popular game. It's just, I think, being a developer myself, my time is very limited, and so as a consequence, big hefty games, I just haven't got the time to devote to playing them. What's your top 5 adult visual novels? Well, you know, of course, slot number 1 would be Dreams of Reality. No, in all seriousness, I play a few. I would say the top slot would actually go to a game that isn't actually made in DAS, which is Pale Carnations. If you have not heard of this game, where the hell have you been? But I highly recommend it. I actually know the developers behind it quite well, and it's a game that it may not cater to everyone's tastes, but the writing is really well done, and even the images. It's a honey select game, and obviously it has those types of images, but you can tell there's been a lot more effort put into them than your regular run-of-the-mill honey select games that you can tend to get. So that's slot number one. Where would I put number two? I suppose Being a Dick, which is a game that I enjoy. Uh, Everyone seems to like that one. Um, I enjoy it. It's easy to play. It has some. I know many people are against mini games. I don't mind them. I'd love to actually add some into Dreams of Reality, and quite frequently I think to myself, I should add a mini game here, or I should do this. But there are some technical limitations and again time limitations that it just means stuff like that has to be just a dream. Um, so yes, I enjoy that game. I know lots of people do. Dr. Pinkcake is a very good developer, and he sure knows his audience well. Number three would be um, One Day at a Time. People will know this. I'm actually good friends with that developer, which is Zoe Raven, um, and he he started making walkthroughs, as many of you will probably use the walkthroughs and some mods that he's made. Uh, and he wanted to go into making a game. He had a story he wanted to tell, and a lot of people, not just myself included, but a lot of people were saying to him, "Just make the game," you know. And eventually he did, and it's a very, very well done game. The story is excellent, um, and he's if you were to compare his first release with his latest release, you can see a massive improvement in the quality of his renders, even in the quality of his writing. Um, I know a few times he's asked me about some comments that he'll get, some feedback that he gets, and I'm always honest with him, as he's always honest with me. And he has gone back and changed things, and I think it's for the better. So that's definitely up there in my personal top five. What are we up to? Number four. What else have I been playing? City of Broken Dreams, Dreamers, Dreams. Yeah. Yes. Visually stunning. Every render is just it blows my mind. The latest updates, it's it just gets better and better. I wish he could release more often, don't we all? But that is definitely top five uh, AVN. And number five, uh, I like. See, there's so many I could put in the slot number five. Become a rock star. I enjoyed that. I played that a couple of years ago now. Yeah, it's been going for a couple of years. I enjoyed that one a lot. I still do. There are there's a difference in the renders in that compared to other games like City of Broken Dreams, but it's still story-wise, it's still a very good game. Um, there are others that I should really mention that I just yeah, I've got to pick five, and they're the five I'm going with. So next question is music or 3D modeling or both? Yeah, um, I some may know this. I was a DJ, not professionally, not by any stretch of the imagination, but it's something I did as a hobby for many years, and I still kind of do, although it's electronic now. I still have the equipment, but it's all packed away in a storage cupboard somewhere. Uh, so yes, music is actually a big part of my life. Anyone that's played Dreams of Reality will know the styles of music that I enjoy, because I do put them in to the game. They're not to everyone's tastes, but I find that I enjoy them, so I'm going to put them in. Um, if I had a choice between, I couldn't choose between them. It would be both. I enjoy 3D modeling. I started doing this a couple of years ago, as I said, and it's something that I do enjoy. So yeah, it would be both. Uh, oh yeah, who made caramel ice cream? A sadist made caramel ice cream. Caramel has no place being in ice cream. Caramel in a chocolate bar I will allow, but not in ice cream. That's going to be controversial. What are your feelings about some of the most popular games being overlit, with each render being done in comic book or portrait format? You're clearly not a proponent of this, as your renders seem to be more photorealistic. Yeah, there is. I think every developer, every artist has a style with their renders, um, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If you have a style that's unique to you, that's your style. That's perfectly fine. Um, Myself, I tend to go for a darker scene. This is mainly because the theme of Dreams Reality is quite dark. If you boil it down to its core elements. Um, but also, I tend to try and get a little bit more realistic lighting, which means there are going to be shadows. Whereas in a lot of other games, they would generally, um, I call it floodlighting. It's not really floodlighting, but they would um, crank the lighting up so that those shadows are almost aren't visible or get washed out, gets very, very grey, and you don't get the sharpness. Um, the YouTube has a lot to answer for in regards to vilifying the idea that you cannot have a sharp shadow in your render. Yes, you can. Sharp shadows exist, just as soft shadows do. Not everything needs to be soft lighting or things like that. You can have harsh lighting and it can still look a very good render. Um, a lot of popular games, yeah, a lot of games will use floodlighting. They will do that. That's fine. That's their choice. But there are also other games out there that will use lighting to set a mood, and that's something I try to emulate with my own. And next question, what are your PC specs? So I have an AMD 3700, it's the processor. I've actually got it clocked at 4.2 gigahertz. It's actually stable at that. Doesn't really make any difference for rendering, but it does help when using DAS, just to have a little bit more clock speed, especially when using DForce and things like that. The memory is 32 gigabytes of 3200. I think it's the HyperX Fury. Bog standard. I think the time is like 18, 16, 16, 16, something like that. The timings are loose. Doesn't really matter too much, but 32 gigabytes is a must if you're using DAS, in my opinion. Purely because it can, when you're creating scenes like what's on the screen at the moment, the texture memory gets loaded into your RAM as well, and when you want to do an array preview, it actually puts that into the onboard RAM. So you want to have a big busy scene like I tend to try and create. You need that memory. In fact, if I had an unlimited funds, I would actually go for a 64 or even 128 gigabytes of memory. But we don't have unlimited funds. What else have I got? Graphics cards is an NVIDIA 2070. I bought that just before they announced the 2070 Super. So, yeah, that was fun. Thanks for that. It does fine. It's it's not a power horse. So I'm staring at it at the moment, and the fans are occasionally turning. It's obviously hitting the fan curve, which is interesting, as the fans are turning on and then turning off almost immediately. That's that's interesting. Yeah, so that is something that I do want to upgrade at some point in the future. I have, it's not water cooled, it's air cooled by a Be Quiet Dark. It actually has two fans on it on the processor, and that keeps it at a steady 40 degrees, between 36 to 40. It does fluctuate on AMD processors, but yeah, it's stable and it's perfectly fine. It has a total of 3, 4, 5 additional case fans, and the power supply is a 600 watt. I can't remember the brand, Corsair, I believe. Yeah, it's not a powerhouse. It's not a beast. I mean, it's definitely on the higher end of the spec. But I mean, I used to be a gamer. These days, I'm too busy making the games. But it does what I need it to do. But the graphics card is something that I really would like to upgrade at some point in the future. Oh, hey, this actually works quite well. Why does iRay only work with NVIDIA? Yeah, so not everyone realizes this, but iRay, which is the rendering engine used inside of DAZ Studio, actually uses it only works with say only works. It works better with NVIDIA cards. It cannot work with AMD cards, and you can CPU render, but that's you just you really don't want to do that. I actually started off CPU rendering, and yeah, it's a lot slower, considerably slower. The reason why you use an NVIDIA graphics card, apart from it being that the engine's designed with it, is that iRay relies on the CUDA cores inside of your graphics card. And of course, AMD does not have CUDA cores. They have a different, and I forget what it is. I used to know this stuff, but I forget what it is. But they have a different rendering pipeline, whereas NVIDIA use CUDA for their rendering. Not for their rasterization, however. That is a different thing entirely. But anyway, as a consequence, quite simply, the more CUDA cores you have, the faster, everything else being equal, the faster your scene will render. To give you a real-world example, so my 2070 has 2,200, I believe, CUDA cores. Sounds a lot. It was a lot. And a 3090, I believe, is 14,000. I'm willing to be corrected on that. I know it's a really big number. It's insane, actually. Yeah, it's got a lot more CUDA cores. As a consequence, a scene that would take me 40 minutes to render would take 7 on a 3090. That's not hyperbole either. That's the truth. That's how powerful that graphics card actually is, and how much of an upgrade it would be. Which also makes it all the more annoying when days before they announce and release the 3090 graphics cards onto the market last year, NVIDIA decided to market it as a gaming card with 24 gigabytes of VRAM, of video memory. It's not a gaming card. It was for developers. That's what they should have gone with. Wouldn't have made any difference to all the scalping and all the rest of it, but they did wrong there, in my opinion. But I'm not salty at all. I missed out, and I don't have £2,500 to drop on a 3090. It's insane. Maybe next year when the market stabilizes, we'll see. We'll see. Are you married? Yes, I am. I've been married for 16 years. 16 years next month. have you considered adding gay content to Dreams of Reality? Yes, I did actually. Um, when those that play, when I was doing the dating update, which was the chapter 2, I believe, if I remember. Yeah, the big part 1 of chapter 2, where you had the options to go on the various dates with the women, and you could also spend time with Jacob. I actually initially intended that you would get a choice where you could pursue a relationship with him. However, again, getting a bit of feedback from my editor and a couple of other people that I talked to about it, I felt, well, the first thing I felt, I couldn't really do it justice. I mean, I'm not gay myself, but that doesn't mean that I can't write that kind of scene or that I have any objections to that kind of scene. No, I don't. Perfectly fine with that. But I felt that in this type of game, I wouldn't be able to do that justice for those that like that kind of content. It feels a little bit shoehorning it in, after the fact. The other reason was I'd already established Jacob as a ladies' man. In chapter 1, when you meet him at the office, you see that he's very easy for for the women to. He's very quick and easy to pick up the women. And when you've already established that, it's very difficult to then say, well, actually, he suddenly becomes gay. It just wouldn't work. And on top of that, you've also got the main character who was, depending on your choices, who was either married or married and splits up. I mean, you could argue splits up and decides that he wants to become gay. It just doesn't work, and it makes a mockery of the whole concept. But that's not to say that in some future project I don't actually have that as a more fleshed out option. But in Dreams of Reality, it's not really going to happen. And that actually leads on to the next question, which I had quite a few people ask about this, and that was, Dreams Reality doesn't have X fetish, are you adding it? If it's not in the game as of now, it probably won't be added. The only exception to that is pregnancy. There is going to be, obviously there will be, because it's already established that Emily is your daughter, so you can take it as read that there is going to be at some point that kind of flashback, that kind of dream sequence involving that. So as for other fetishes, there isn't really much that I've left out that wouldn't work in Dreams of Reality, like some of the more extreme furry and monster fetishes, that they just don't work in that kind of environment. So yeah, obviously they're not going to be included. That also goes for the more taboo subjects that are quite prevalent in adult games. That's not going to be in there. That's not what I'm about. I have nothing against people that play those games. It's fine. At the end of the day, an adult visual novel, it is a fantasy, it is escapism. As long as everyone knows that it is escapism, then that's fine, you know. So yeah, there was actually another question. I'm just going to see if I can find it. Oh yeah, does your mum know you make adult games? Yes, she does. My whole family don't, but yeah, my mum knows. She doesn't play the game, obviously, but she is aware that I work on an adult game, or I work on a game and it has adult elements in it. I know a lot of people see the adult industry as a big taboo, like, oh, that's dirty, must push that aside. That's not acceptable. I disagree with that. It's a medium, yet there are elements that are less savoury. Um, I don't think people should be forced into working in that kind of environment. But the environment I do, I make a game that features adults having consensual sex. What's wrong with that? And if someone wants to play that game and enjoy the story and enjoy the scenes, off you trot. You know, you watch a late night TV show, it's the same thing. It's a visual medium that portrays adults having consensual sex. I tend to be a little bit more graphic. These days, I mean, you get Channel 4, I'll tell you what, it gets pretty graphic sometimes. So yeah, I have no problem with my parents being aware of that. My wife is aware of what I do. And that's it, I have no issue with it at all. And they have no issue with it. So yeah. Pepsi or Coke? Water. And how did you come up with your name? Cenc, yes. Let's see, we've got about 4 minutes left. Yeah, I can fit this one in. Years ago, when I was at school, many, many years ago, myself and a group of friends decided to make a band, as you do. This is in secondary school. And it was brilliant. I used to go home for lunch. I actually used to go around my granddad's house for lunch because he lived around the corner and cooked breakfast, cooked lunches. Who's going to say no to that? So we agreed to do this. I go home for lunch, come back at the end of lunch, back to school, to be told, yeah, we formed a band, which was kind of amusing. And I was told that the name that had been selected was Cenc, with a C, and yeah, that stuck with me. It's actually Cenc as opposed to Sense, but there we go. The band lasted all of one lunchtime, mainly for the fact that I was the only one that played an instrument, and that was the drums, and I think I'd had about a month's worth of lessons, so you can see that wasn't really going to happen. But the name stuck with me, and it stuck with me for all those years. So yeah. And what else have we got? Why do pushy, bossy Asian dames suddenly become submissive when I say chill women? Well, no one in the history of calming down has ever calmed down by being told to calm down. It's simple as that. Right, and last question. If you could change anything about the previous chapters, what would it be? I think it would probably be to change how Sebastian was introduced. I mean, he's intended to be the big bad guy, but I think perhaps I did it a bit too well. I realise that that's a cop out. That's what are your faults? Oh, my faults are I care too much. No, I know. I think I intended him to come across as a baddie, as someone you should hate. But I think perhaps where I was trying to perhaps be not as subtle with him, I could have dialed it back a bit, and it still would have worked. As it is, he's definitely gone into the realms of being a psychopath. Funny enough, after the second or third update, a fellow dev said, "You seem to write psychopaths very well," which had me slightly worried for a while there. But yeah, it's intended that you dislike him, and I think perhaps I could have dialed that back a bit and introduced him a little bit more subtly, and rather than ratchet up straight away. But hey, we live and learn. That looks to be about our time for now. Thank you for watching. There will be a second part to this at some point. For now, bye bye.